I'm Diane Albino, and I work in the community village, which I have done for many years. I'm on the council, and I actually was born in Eugene, Oregon. Left after high school, went to San Francisco and traveled overseas, and then came back when it was the Back to the Land movement, and found the fair like the next year, which was almost like going back to San Francisco. Well, the first fair, when it was like, oh wow, look at all the hippies in one place. And then I think there was 2 stages then. I think there was Shady Grove and there was a main stage. And that's where, you know, so that was where the music was. And then everything else was, when you walked around at night, it was just magical because there'd be a few people over here playing music and a few people as you walked around. And there was way dark stretches, you know, that you could walk in. At the same time, it was, you know, as my kids got a little bit older, they could just run around. They would check in, and like Community Village was a really good place for that. And my daughter, one time she didn't check in. I think she was 4. My younger daughter, and I said, well, where's my daughter? She didn't check in. And somebody said, oh, they saw her and took her to childcare because they thought she was a lost kid. So I went up to childcare to get her. She'd already busted out childcare, so, but she knew her way back. And the kids would learn their way around, and it was never so crowded then. But it was just getting to see all those people and fairly like-minded. Is it going to blow in front of your camera? Ay. Anyway, it was just that, and the music, I can't even remember what the music, with Miss Rander for sure, who the girls are playing tomorrow night, the twins, anyway, the music was a lot of local bands. There was, I can't even remember, Wheatfield, Miss Rander. Geez, there was good music then anyway, local music, and it was just amazing. And the midnight show, everything, it was all lit by people either with their flashlights or they had kerosene lanterns or something, and you know, there was no lights, and when they came in they were flaming torches. They weren't like throwing light sticks in the air or whatever they do now, you know. And you could always get the Karamazovs to juggle something weird with no clothes on too, you know. I mean, it was like, that's the way it was, and it was just not an issue. Just like the Ritz when they still had one little sauna. But it was that part is just part of the fabric of the fair, is that whole the nudity thing, you know. And obviously when, you know, we got more family friendly, you know, I don't know whose family we were more friendly to, not ours, but you know, that you know, people, you know, the legal thing is you have to cover your genitals. So I think we're more discreet than that these days. You don't see a lot of anything strange, but every once in a while, you know. But it was just that whole freedom and sort of an organic quality to it. And then, you know, like I said, all my friends started going, and, you know, people that I knew in the early 70s, that whole Back to the Land thing. And, you know, when Community Village started, there was an energy park. All of that was in one place. Like the first house had everything. It had a compost toilet. It had a solar shower. It had all of that stuff here. And then the techno guys moved over to the other part because they got offered some more room there. So. But they get the bicycle blender that makes margaritas instead of us. But yeah, we had a compost toilet here more than once before those 6-packs were built. And yeah, it was. In a way, it was pretty wild. I remember people pulling wagons with beer, you know, selling beer, and there would be people on like street corners, you know, rattling off drugs that were available, you know. So that definitely got cleaned up. I remember Bill Wooten. I got to know Bill Wooten because he ran the Oregon Economic Development Council with some other fair people, Denny Gaylor. I can't remember who all was involved with that, but Tomas and I both had CETA grants then, and we actually wrote the first grant to do recycling in Lane County. So we had meetings at my house, and Tomas, and you can ask him about it when you interview him, but Tomas and Bill got in raging, loud fights, you know, verbal fights. But anyway, I remember Bill also, because he was like the point person. I remember him getting a black eye at least once from, you know, some fairgoer that he, you know, didn't like what was going on, you know. Then there was a guy, let's see, Beto, I think, was president then. Must have been the mid-'80s. This was when I was in graduate school, and I'd gotten to know this guy, Spencer, who was a black guy who came to, I took a music class, and he was brought in, you know, for part of that class. Well, anyway, I guess he had encounters at the fair, not the most pleasant kind, and maybe he was drinking, I don't know, but he got tossed out a few times. Maybe he even got called off. But anyway, she called me one time and asked me if I knew him, and I thought, oh, good, we're finally going to make nice, you know. And she said, could you ask him not to come to the fair? So that was sort of sad, but, you know, because there's always been a little problem with, you know, sometimes the big boys, you know, and things like that, you know. But, you know, troubles now, I mean, a couple years ago we had that thievery when somebody stole everybody's laptops and, you know, whatever. But that was, that hasn't happened very often. I don't know what goes on of the milder nature, but anyway, I don't know what else to say. It was just magical, you know, and it can still be magical, you know. As soon as you hear the teddy bear picnic being played and the band's coming around, and, you know, it seems like the village is a funny place because whenever it's like we had the Peachy the Dragon, but, you know, now it's out somewhere else. But used to live right back in here. And now the stewardship out there, and where, you know, the village and Energy Park, and I think all the nonprofit parts of the fair were hoping to have a presence in the new area. But I guess somebody decided they'll just do the stewardship instead. So I'm not sure how all that's going. You know, I'm one of those people that has a hard time with some kind of changes because I'm afraid it's going to get worse instead of better. So I'm like always keeping, you know, a little wait and see attitude, you know. I felt sorry for all the people that had to move from Crafts Lot. But I suppose they'll be happy eventually when they get settled in. But, you know, you can't keep moving older people farther away. Although, since Craft Lot's right there, they're not so far, I guess. they're close to the new part. Yeah. But, yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know how this community center, how that's going to go, because I'm not sure how community it is, you know, and how I know we need the kitchen, but I'm not, when I've seen a $4 million design, I'm not sure that's what we need, you know, and, especially because we keep, you know, as a volunteer, it keeps getting more expensive to be a volunteer. Now, you know, I remember when they brought up paying for parking for volunteers, and I was sort of opposed to that, you know, and it costs a lot of money to be a volunteer, and sometimes that doesn't seem to be acknowledged. There's more like, look at all the benefits we give volunteers, you know, and then when you do eat, you're still going to bring a lot of food from home, and every time you come out to work, you know, you're paying to get here, and, you know, sometimes coordinators can get some expenses back, but not much, and so, you know, I was really surprised to find out when I was get the recall thing, because I didn't support volunteers. If they'd heard me in those arguments with Grumpy and Hillary about how, you know, we really need to have better, you know, food vouchers value up, and it's the same year that they went from $2.50 to $3, it's the same year that we had to start paying for parking, so it was a wash basically, you know, and if you were to figure out how, if you took a food voucher to be equal to an hour's worth of work, which is our value, and if you did that, took the number of food vouchers and did times the hours of work at minimum wage, we contribute as volunteers a lot to the fair. I mean, we only have 6 staff, I lose count now. It's like who's coming and who's going, but, you know, it's always exciting to see a change just because, you know, it's fresh air and new ideas. And we've had great leadership to get us as far, especially with our relationships with all the neighbors. There's the sun. I'll just lean over. The sun! Yes, we love you, but anyway, yeah, I think we've had amazing staff people over the years, and, you know, it's a time of change with staff because some of them are my age. The volunteers won't go away, but I guess staff would like to take a break. But yeah, there'd be nothing without the volunteers. And the entertainers who thought, you know, once we bought the land, things were going to turn around for them. I know that volunteers would like to bring, vaudeville would like to bring other vaudevillians here, but there's apparently not the money to do it. Because I think, you know, the fair has done a lot to revive vaudeville everywhere. And just the kind of acts that are, you know, now with different acts that are coming up that combine all of that with their music. And it's just amazing. When I think of the kids who've come through the fair who are musicians now, and all the other things, you know, it's amazing. It's a great training ground for the younger people too, so. I mean, I can't even imagine the logistics, sitting here with my little tiny piece that I do and how I have to run around like crazy gathering up the stuff that we need at this part of the fair that's going on everywhere to make it magical for everybody. I was a volunteer at Whitebird, and we came out and worked in the Whitebird chicken booth, which was down by main stage then. We didn't know much about camping. It was the first time I camped here, and my mom had loaned us a fairly large tent, and we put it up and all sorts of people moved in. I don't even know who they were. And my daughter, who's now coordinator of showers, was not walking yet. So our main concern then was to keep her from crawling into fire pits, because there was a lot of fire pits in those days. Also in those early days we had the bikers that would just ride right into the fair, and I don't know if they were doing any security then. I know the Hodads started doing traffic and security in the early days. And my brother was one of those, and he said all he did was bust dogs and move dogs out. But after that I went had some friends who had a booth. Rock Badger, Peter Johnson was one of them, and it was a crafts booth, and we had the paper little tags in, and they were real easy to pass. Yeah, so we had they had crafts and coffee, and they had a lot of people in that booth, because you could take those paper passes, walk outside with someone else's and bring someone in, and that was the early days, and then we had them made into buttons. So after that, I got asked to coordinate poetry on the Shady Grove stage, because I was involved in a poetry magazine with Hal Hartzell, Peter Jensen, John Silvermoon. There was a bunch of people that were involved in that. And then after that, I found the village, because our community had an alternative school. We had a organics buying club. We had lots of different plays representing ourselves in the village. And so we were in the village for a while, and then I got in the famous village play of 1982. After that, they asked me to be on council. So I've been on council a lot since. I missed 2 fairs, 95 and 96, because I went in the Peace Corps, and then came back.
Where'd you go?
I went to Swaziland. Interestingly, when I was there, I got taken by some other people who'd been there around to a festival in South Africa called at Rustler's Valley, and the people there who were running this festival knew about the country fair. So it was really fun, you know, to get a little hit of home when I was gone. Maybe 5,000 people kind of festival, but yeah, and I that's the only ones I've missed since, is the 95, 96. So 72 is the first one I remember camping at. I might have come the year before, it's all hazy. It was like coming into Hobbit land. And that was real special. It was all like the old booths, all that woodsy feeling, and never knowing where you were going to turn out next. And it was very magical. People had tree houses, and it was the amazing thing, because when I started getting food vouchers, I couldn't afford to go out to eat. But when I got food vouchers at that time, it was a lot of money. You know, I mean, you could go out and eat, and it was the only time I got to go out and eat. Because we were pretty poor in those early days. Then you get, and it went a lot farther then. I haven't kept up with the times, so I let the treasurers know. One that I want to mention, because sometimes it doesn't seem to be acknowledged, we had a kids camp out here in I want to say 85, 86, called Camp Long Tom. Percy Hilo, I don't know if you've talked to him, but he was one of the instigators, and Robert Despain was involved, and we probably had 30 some kids. It was very open, any fair kids could come, and the kids camped in the village. Joan McDonald was cooking at main camp for the kids, and then there was activities like archery and singing, and there was just a lot of things to do for the kids. It was more like camp, not like Culture Jam. And because I was milking goats then, I brought my goats and had them tied up in little people. So that was another activity. Let's go watch her milk the goats, you know. And it was kids maybe 7 or 8 till 13 ages, and it was a blast. It went all week, and it was very cheap, you know. So we had, and lots going on. But then the next year, it was ready to start, and all of a sudden it got the rug pulled out from under it for legal. It was, well, we can't do that here because it's legal. We have legal issues of doing that on the land. So, but 1 year, it was a great camp, and it seems to get forgotten sometimes. So, you know, it was a camp.
Sounds wonderful.
It was great. My kids went. Like I said, Robert Despain's daughter was here. I can't remember who all those other kids were. They're all grown up now and doing their own jobs. Most of them are coordinators. The 40-year-olds are taking over. But well, I can't think of it. There's a lot of things. I was like, well, the 20th anniversary. Ken Kesey was allowed to be on the stage and say a few words, so he started going on about how he thought the gate should be open and anybody should be able to come in and stay and la la la. And so some of the powers that be were like going like this to the sound guys, you know, cut them off, and they were like, and I was backstage so I could see this going on, you know. People weren't very happy. Some of the powers that be weren't very happy about that, but it was pretty fun. Okay, so in the 70s, well, I would do mushrooms once a year at the fair, and you could buy them. $5 was enough for 2 people, and they were up near childcare. There was a booth, that's all they did, I swear, was sell mushrooms. And anyway, so, you know, I had mushrooms, and then 3 of us went walking, and we went walking up to the quesadilla booth, and, you know, we're just standing there, and then this guy says, "Don't you know me? I'm your dentist." It was Tom Hune, who's still practicing dentistry today. But that always, I could always remember that. It was just so, you know, you see somebody out of context. You know, like one time I running around just having silly fun, and I ran into one of my professors when I was in graduate school. Oops. I worked the Dead Show in '82, which was pretty remarkable, especially the traffic jam afterwards. But you know, like I said, it all goes together, blurs together. Good music, the early days of the Midnight Show when you could actually see and hear. Then Robert Hart, who was the original fire dancer out here, who wasn't officially, but he would dance. He would do his fire dancing at night somewhere along the path, and people would go to him along to do it naked because that was the standard then. And eventually he'd be fire dancing naked, singing chestnuts roasting on the open fire. But we always liked that. It was highly entertaining. You know, I could talk about why, you know, one of the reasons I like it. The first thing to me is it's a family reunion. There's 3 generations of my family here. My friends who I've known since the 70s, almost all of them are here. Some are elders, some are still working. One drives the fart shuttle. They're all here. And, you know, people that I live by that, you know, it's just like our little summer camp that we do, besides the Waldo, or, you know, our real camp. But it's urban camping. I call it urban camping because you can get up in the morning and walk around the corner and buy a cup of coffee. That's camping, you know. So we all have traditions of walking around Friday night, or, you know, just hanging out, a group. Yeah, and my daughter, they're making their own traditions, and they used to have Flasher Fridays. I think it's Superhero this year, though. Getting a little old for Flasher Fridays, I guess. But and the kids, my oldest grandson is on Teen Crew. It's his 2nd year, and he plans to always be here. You know, well, we'll hope the fair will always be here. So yeah, it's just amazing because of all, you know, it's just. Like I say, it's a family event first for all of us. We're always amazed at where do all these people come from? Well, to me, it's like somehow keeping all our visions of the 60s. You know, the whole peace, love, and understanding, and getting along. You know, that whole. And so many things that we wanted to see happen then have happened now. Just lately, I mean, I can't believe what has happened, you know, with legalized pot and same-sex marriage, and, you know, medical getting closer for all. But all of that, organic foods, in the 60s, you know, we were really and all that stuff. Now, unfortunately, we still have war. I don't know how we get rid of that because people make too much money off of it. But so all the alternative schools over the years that so many people have had, and it's still keeping that, to me, keeping that alive, and all the flamboyance, getting to, get out your hippie finery and, carry on and just be somebody who you can't be out in the real world. Oh, even though that has changed, when I go somewhere and see all the people with so many studs and weird things all over their bodies, it's like, oh, changes have happened. And things are mainstream. Whoever would have guessed that they would be mainstream, But it's just keeping that. When I've tried to tell my daughter what it was like in San Francisco in 1967, walking down Haight Street. And the fair and dead shows on the lot were the closest things I've ever come to that since. The two things. Now I guess dead shows is also a thing of the past. They say, but I don't believe them. So keep hope alive, right? But, and that the sound of music in the hot afternoon, that's just part of it, outdoor concerts, and just the camaraderie. It's just, it's all of that, that vision of the 60s that people had, that brief period of time there before it got all stupid again. So I like to think it's happening. Oh, and smell the food? Oh yeah. So, there's so much to keep coming back for. I'm always amazed when people just like, oh, I can't do it anymore. I can't sleep in a tent, whatever. So I suppose that day will come, but hopefully not too soon. Hopefully I'll have an RV then, and they'll have RV parking in the shade. Well, one of the things, we need a lot better way of people movers. I hardly ever leave the 8 during the fair or the area, and I went one time on a golf cart out to where the public comes in and parks, and it's a horribly long distance in the sun because we don't open early, so you can get here in the early part where it's not hot, and a lot of our public is the same age I am, and they, eventually they won't be able to come if we don't, and we keep coming up with, what if we had a monorail, what if we had a flat chairlift that you just sat on and rode in, or what? Because I guess the argument I always hear about all of my suggestions is, legal issues, because we can't provide rides or transport or something. But I'm sure there's pay more, you can have more. Disneyland has ways of moving people around. I think that's a real important one. And if people have to walk, there should be shady walks, rest areas with cold water, and maybe cool things to look at, along the way. Because just walking out to registration on a hot day, forget about it. So the public has to do that all the time unless they're smart enough to ride the bus, which I can't. Oh, this is my vision, but one of the things I did, my kids got to that age where they didn't come back, because you used to be able to have them just run loose back in the day, and they were supposed to show up at dark. Well, when they stopped doing that, like ages 10, 11, whatever, I took them, got on the bus, rode into town. My mom met the bus, I gave them to her, and then the next morning she'd bring them back down, and I'd meet the bus and bring them back out. That was good, but that's not my vision for the future. But I'd like to see some kind of dome design that really will contain the sound, so that people want to do dubstep or disco or whatever, have the place to do it without everybody getting them over the top. I've heard someone recently saying, why can't we have acoustic Fridays? Now, last night, which was like a Thursday night at the fair, it was Tuesday, walking around, I ran into people playing music just like it used to be. So, the people want that, people want both. So I'm hoping we can solve that in the nearer future, because like my 15-year-old grandson wants dubstep. So who knows where that'll go. I've always wondered why we can't have a 2-weekend fair. And maybe the second weekend could be cheaper when things aren't as pretty anymore. But in between, you get the chance to recover and clean up, and right in the middle of the week, couldn't we have a healing gathering for the family? Like Brighton Bush, where people put on workshops and other people go to them. And I feel like there's a lot of people, vendors, the craftspeople who have another fair to go to, so they wouldn't be there, which would open up some space. The same with the food booths, same with volunteers. Some wouldn't be able to do it, but that would open up room for others. And I suppose there's, legal arguments against that, but that's usually what gets thrown up at all the good ideas, is, we can't do that. But I think that would be a really nice thing if we all spent time together in a not open to the public way besides just putting the fair together. And that's one of the things too. I mean, you know, we are aging, as you know, there's no end to new people. There's a baby over there, you know, but we have all the continuum of age, and we have to deal with it all. And some people are feeling like there's an anti-elder thing. I just feel like the 40-year-olds are feeling their oats myself, you know, because, I mean, face it, we were in our 20s when we ran the show, you know, so I can understand people wanting to, you know, step up. But, people don't want people to become elders because now somebody wants to raise the age. Right now it's 55 years and 20 years of service, and 55, when they proposed it, as Brad Lurch will say, 55 sounded pretty old to him. And then now, you know, it's been 15 or 16, how long we've had the elders program, 55 sounds pretty young to me. So, you know, maybe there's, you know, we have 2 generations of elders now. So but if you don't have a new thing for people to do, then you can't move the other people in. So that's just a solution waiting to be found. But if elders feel unwanted, you know, because the things are made so hard for them, like camping far away and up a hill, which is where it is now, you know, so, you know, because people don't want to stop coming. You know, it's where the kids are. It's where the grandkids are. You know, it is a family thing. So, and there's things that are hard. And you know, for people when they get older, like having the bathrooms clear out front until Thursday. That's one thing. But you know, I think most people want it to be very inclusive, and so I don't know how. You know, I just think one of the things we really have to have more shuttles, more ways of moving people, and not just for us, but for the public. Because at some point people, you know, you're going to have heat stroke out there just getting from your, you know, unless you're smart enough to ride the bus. But all people can't ride the bus. There's no bus, for instance, where I live. We don't have a bus service, so, you know, I'm not riding the bus too soon. I think we don't have as wide a variety of music as I like. We have, I would like to see more ethnic music and more reggae, you know, and more, my grandson would like to see more hip hop, you know, so, but you know, with the new dance pavilion, I'm sure we're going to get more ethnic stuff happening. Hand washing is a big change. You know, we never used to have hand washing. You know how the water used to got big, the dangerous truck at night filling things in those big barrels, you know, but now there's the sinks, but they're pretty funky off season. They get full of leaves and stuff, and you know, like I said, we tested them. Water wouldn't drain very slowly down one and went directly to the ground through the pipe on the other one. So, you know, it's always like first they get the potties going, and then the hand washing. So it's just one of those things. I'll go and razz people until they're sick, and they finally kick down the hand sanitizer or something. Or sometimes there's no toilet paper. But, you know, having the porta potties, I mean, having the 6-packs is nice. Porta potties aren't my favorite. But now I know where the clean ones are, and that's where I go. But changes, well, geez, you can't see all the fair anymore. If you came out for the day, you'd be hard pressed to see a third of it. I mean, there's places I never get. I'll be surprised if I actually get out to I suppose I'll try to get out to the Craft Life. There's actually a dance pavilion. I'm still waiting to see it. But you know, I don't like to get out in the sun during the day and the dust, so I tend to sneak around the edges of things. But yeah, I hope it's going to thin out the crowd, because it's, you know, been so crowded, especially on East 13th, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference or not. I hope so. And I hope that some people don't see having that new space as a reason to up our gate and to let more people in. Like, I think we should wait and give people a breather and see how it's going to work. So, because there's always lots of ideas, so we'll see what happens with those. Yeah, the barter fair, that's a whole nother thing. And I remember when the barter fair was at Main Stage Meadow. And it seemed like it worked then. Everybody had to carry their stuff in. It was fair family, because who could get in? And I don't know how it got out of hand out there, because you supposedly needed a wristband to get in, but who were those people? They never even came in the fair. Somebody let that happen. That somebody in charge let that happen. And now, so it gave the barter fair a bad name. It'd be nice to bring it back as the way it used to be. And I think that's the plan. and I was really sad that it didn't happen yet this year. Of course, it got me in trouble. You know, the booths belong to the fair. Don't get attached to your camping. Never mind that all your kids were created there or whatever, or the placenta's buried over there, or whatever people got going. People are attached, and it's hard to make those changes. And the people who don't understand that, I think they just haven't experienced it. I don't know, how could you not be? And I think about if I quit my day job here, the job that gives me food vouchers, I'll lose my camping spot too, because it's sort of assigned to the position. And then where am I going to go, Because when I watch those people out in the South Woods hacking their way to a new camping site, and then how far away is that if we don't have shuttles? We have the geezer. We have a different golf cart this year, but there's not enough to move people around that. Well, my idea was that, I'm thinking the minimal impact, if you do a ski lift only flat and you just need the poles, and then it just keeps going around slowly. You know how you sit on a ski, I don't know if you ski, but you just sit on it when it goes by. And so it's just a continuous thing. And if you can't run that on solar, of course I want a solar carousel too. But that's another one, hasn't gone very far because of the legalities. It's a ride, it's going to be dangerous. It'd be so beautiful. You could make an art project out of redoing any animals, because you could find old broken down merry-go-rounds. They bring them into the county fair on a flatbed, so they're transportable. And I even solved how to store it with Andy. I said, do a pie-shaped floor and take the pieces, and you could do theater on it. You could play Grateful Dead music on the pipe organ. It would be so amazing, and run it with solar and have Energy Park be involved. A solar-powered carousel. But so far, even though we have, I don't know. I should have told you this. I'm the unofficial Dangerous Art Committee. And examples is that rocking horse that's so attractive to kids, but it's huge and you can fall off or get crushed under it. And then there was a metal, I think it's supposed to be like the Queen of Hearts over there, and I haven't seen it lately, but it had all these curved metal things, and they had to bury it because of that, the bottom. People, they come back from Burning Man and they got great ideas, but then they don't think about kids, because this is a kid event. One evening I went up to the Ware Barn with someone who was going to charge their golf cart, and there was some guy who'd showed up with a structure made out of metal with these curving sharp edges and the fire thing that was going up and down, and I said, well, that's great, fire and sharp edges, and where's this going to get put? And they did put it up, and it only was there for 1 year, because it's like people could run around and fall on it, kids. The block of ice, and the first time I saw that, and it's held with these sharp ice hooks, and I'm like, isn't that going to melt? Then what's going to happen to those hooks, and what's going to happen when it falls? And they're like, it disappeared fairly soon after that. But the first they said, and I had Wisnowski, because I complained to him, was a state, and he's like, no, don't worry your pretty little head about it, was sort of his attitude, and then he said, we put security around, and the security, they tied a little string around the mister area. That's where it was. And then the guy who's standing there supposed to watch it, he's busy watching the stage. And then it went away, but then a couple years later it came back, and it fell. And there was a little girl playing there. Somebody who was on the ball managed to push the kid out of the way, but they did have it landed on their finger or something, and the person did go to the hospital. And I don't know how all that turned out, because, I don't always hear all those things. But, it's like people not thinking when they build things that, attractive nuisance, whatever. So I'll go around sometimes and say, well, that's not very safe. You obviously weren't thinking of 3-year-olds when you built that one. And yeah, I don't know how the new area is going to be. Hopefully, I think people might have learned over the years, but there is that difference. Burning Man is a whole different event, but people because I haven't been, but I've seen videos. It's amazing art and creative, and everybody's part of the process. But a lot of it's very edgy and very, lots of metal and sharp edges, like I said, lots of fire and different things, and it's not really our thing. But people want to bring it here, and we're a softer event, so I don't know.
Woods.
We're in the woods. Yeah. Oh, speaking of woods, are you on? Are we on? When the moon launch was first proposed, there were some people who did not want to have it because they wanted, they didn't want a place that was exclusive to women. They wanted it to be for everybody. And the moon lodge is in theory for women on their period to chill out, you know. So, but it eventually became part of the fabric of, it used to be John Silverman's camping area back in the day. But anyway, but when he was back in the village in the early days. But recently we were approached by two different people. One who wanted to have a space for LBGT. I never get all the alphabet straight because not that I'm insensitive, but you know, for all alternative sexual viewpoints, including none. You know, and they wanted a space for that. And then somebody else came in and they wanted to have Apollo's Den, to have a place for guys to be without women. But we have no new spaces, you know, so that's sort of, they found room in a different booth for this year. I don't know how that's going to go. But the whole thing with this now, my understanding, and I'm not to be insensitive because my grandson's brother used to be a sister. And, you know, I mean, I have a lot of, you know, context, but I'm like, according to people are telling me, it's what you are, what you identify as. And so if I decide that one day that I'm feeling rather male, does that mean I can use the Apollo's Den? Today I'm identifying as a male. And then you take that woman, the woman who was passing as black in Spokane. Well, you know, if you can be transsexual, can you be transracial? Can you decide one day you want to be? So it's a lot of weird, interesting philosophical issues that come up around those things. You know, I feel that the fair is pretty open to all of that, except race, unfortunately. I just don't feel we're enough forthcoming, you know, enough friendly enough, welcoming enough. But the Moon Lodge apparently is here to stay, and it is quite a comfy place. And there are 2 big beds, I think, and to chill out in. I don't know what's going to happen to Apollo's Den or the other place, which I think it's the Rainbow something. I can't remember. So I was going to tell you about this other booth. So I mean, campsite. So back here, it encroach, and then they were the people who instead of coming back to go to bed at night, because you see it's a huge bedroom, hundreds of people, but they would come back and then break out the beers and the guitars and be loud and then start a fire. They had a fire pit, and the fire would get huge. I mean, flames were 6 feet high, so I'd go call security, and this happened more than one year. And, you know, and we're talking right in the middle of everything, and that was when you didn't need a fire permit, apparently. So my job every year when I first come out here in June was to go get all the bricks that line the fire pit and to disperse them out in the woods. So to make it a little harder for them to do that fire, because it was not appropriate. And you know, I still feel like people here, you know, that it is a quiet space. If you want a party, there's a huge party going on out there, you know. So, but I also noticed at different camps, some people have huge camps with huge cooking facilities and all of that. And then other people, you know, we don't cook here. The village house, we used to have a different house, and we had a provecho, and we used to have a mud stove, the kind they make, and we used to cook and give away soup and tea and whatever. But then at some point, I guess the food booths didn't like somebody giving away food, so that went away. But it's just all the changes that have happened, you know. This is so out of context and mixed up, isn't it? Before cell phones. There was a different fair. And, you know, when Reese was in charge, all communications had to go through Fair Central instead of just calling somebody. And also the people who went around all night looking for their partner that they lost because you couldn't call them and find them or her. You know, things that were weird that you could not, you just had to cast it all to the winds, you know, you had no way of getting in touch with anybody. Yeah, those were different fairs. And when you panic, your kids aren't there and it's getting dark, you know. But we don't hear about a lot of lost kids, but maybe they don't tell us either.